All right, thank you guys, and welcome to College Football Week 12. And of course, this is our Big Ten edition. And as always, my name is Brock Page, and it's great to have you here with me today. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive into some Big Ten conference action. And we're actually going to start with a Friday night game. I'm talking about Purdue squaring off against Minnesota, and that's going to be a 7:30 p.m. Eastern start time at the TCF Bank Stadium. Now, the Boilermakers of Purdue are minus 2.5 on the road with the total at 62 points. We're 4-1 in our last 5 extra daily picks on patreon.com/BrockPage. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. We're also 3-1 in our last 4 Underdog tier package plays on that site as well. And if you want to access the Underdog tier membership, that's only going to cost you just $4.99. Now, we currently have over 750 members signed up and active on that page. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. Now, moving on, Purdue's 2-1 on the season. Their only loss was a 1-score defeat to a very good undefeated Northwestern team. So these Boilermakers playing some pretty good football thus far early in the 2020 season here. Now, Purdue's got a very dangerous passing attack as they are averaging over 305 yards a game through the air. Quarterback Aiden O'Connell has thrown for 916 yards in 3 games, along with 7 touchdown passes. His favorite target's been wideout David Bell, who has 31 grabs for 321 yards and 4 scores. Bell's currently averaging 107 yards a game receiving. Purdue successfully covered the point spread in 8 out of their last 11 conference ball games, and of course, that dates back to last season. Now, they are taking on a Minnesota team who's coming fresh off a 28-point loss to Iowa this past week. The Golden Gophers have lost 3 out of their last 4 ball games to open up the 2020 season, and Minnesota's currently 0-2 straight up on their home turf. Now, the defense is allowing 36 points per contest and nearly 240 yards a game on the ground. Minnesota's currently 0-2 against the spread at home this season, 1-3 against the spread overall for the year. They're also allowing nearly 8 yards per play on the defensive side. Meanwhile, offensively, the Gophers really haven't been clicking there either. Quarterback Tanner Morgan is completing just 57% of his passes, and he's averaging just 192 yards a game passing. Now, Morgan's also thrown 4 interceptions, and he's been sacked 11 times. Just 4 total touchdown passes on the season for the junior quarterback here. And one more final thing to add about this Minnesota defense. They're averaging less than 1.6 sacks per contest, and they have just 2 interceptions through 4 ball games. Now, total-wise, Minnesota's last 2 straight contests both stayed under the posted number. Meanwhile, Purdue, on the other side of things, they are a perfect 3-0 to the under for the entire season themselves. Give me the Purdue Boilermakers minus 2.5 and the under 62 in that ball game. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines and personal leans out for College Football Week 12. And of course, this is the Big Ten edition. But before we go ahead and dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, just got to quickly remind you once again that we are 4-1 in our last 5 extra daily picks on patreon.com/BrockPage. And of course, the extra daily pick is a membership that I offer on that website. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. We're also 3-1 in our last 4 Underdog tier package picks on that site as well. And access to the Underdog tier is only going to cost you just $4.99. Now, we currently have over 750 members signed up and active on that site. So if you're curious about signing up, if you're kind of on the fence, there's plenty of people out there that are signed up. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. And moving on, we are going to take a look at Illinois squaring off against Nebraska. and that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff in Corn Country. The Nebraska Cornhuskers are minus 15 at home, totals 59. Nebraska opened up the season losing their first 2 ball games. They've also failed to cover the number in 2 out of their last 3. Now, this Cornhusker defense is allowing 32 points a game and 205 yards a game on the ground. Meanwhile, offensively, not so good there either. Nebraska scoring just 20 points per contest, and they throw for less than $180 a game. The Cornhuskers are completing just 61% of their passes, and they have just 1 passing touchdown on the season. Now, the Huskers don't have any receivers over the 100-yard mark yet, as their leading pass catcher on the team is averaging just 32 receiving yards per game. That is certainly not a good trend, not a good statistic there. And, of course, out of Nebraska's last 20 home games over the past couple of seasons, the Cornhuskers have successfully covered the number in just 30% of those contests. So Nebraska really not doing a great job covering the number at home over the past couple of seasons. Now, they are taking on an Illinois program who's coming fresh off a nice 3-point victory over a gritty Rutgers team. Illinois has also successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. Purdue and Rutgers, they got the job done against. Now, the Fighting Illini is rushing for over 245 yards per game on the road. Running back Chase Brown has nearly 250 rushing yards on the season through 3 games, 7.1 yards per carry he's averaging. And running back Mike Epstein also has 225 yards on the year, along with 3 rushing touchdowns. Epstein's averaging nearly 6 yards per carry. Meanwhile, this Illinois defense, as much as they've struggled in certain spots here, they've got 8 takeaways already through just 3 games. Defensive back Devin Witherspoon has a pair of interceptions from the secondary, one fumble recovery, and 18 total tackles for the Spoon Man. Meanwhile, defensive lineman Owen Carney has 3 sacks on the season himself, 1 forced fumble, and 13 total tackles for the big fella. And, of course, can't forget about tough-as-nails Jake Hansen, who currently leads this Illini defense with 37 total tackles, along with an interception and 2 forced fumbles. Hansen also has a sack and a fumble recovery on the season as well. Illinois has successfully gotten the job done against the spread in 8 out of their last dozen ball games. Of course, that dates back to last season as well. And when it comes to the total in this one, Illinois' last 3 straight ball games stayed under the posted total. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, we're looking at a Nebraska Cornhusker team who saw their last 3 straight contests stay under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward another underdog in this one. Give me the underdog Illinois Fighting Illini plus 15 and the under 59 in that ball game. And with that, we're going to dive into the game of the week, really. If you think about it, it is going to be Indiana, Ohio State, 12 p.m. Eastern start time. The Buckeyes are the 21-point favorite at home, total 66.5. The Buckeyes failed to cover the point spread in their last game against Rutgers. They also failed to cover the number in 7 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings with the Hoosiers. Their defense is allowing just about 180 yards a game rushing at home this season. This Buckeye secondary also has just 1 interception thus far in the season as well. Ohio State has failed to cover the point spread in their last 5 ball games hosting Indiana. So a couple trends, couple things there that may not be in the favor of Ohio State backers laying 21 points. Don't get me wrong, Ohio State looks awesome this year. But 21 points is a big number, and they're taking on a Hoosier ball club who's coming fresh off a 24-point shutout of Michigan State this past week. Indiana's 4-0 straight up to start the 2020 season, and they've also gone a perfect 4-0 against the spread in those ball games. This Indy offense is scoring 34 points a game, and they're throwing for nearly 280 yards on the road. Quarterback Michael Penix Jr. has thrown for over 1,000 yards already on the season, 9 touchdown tosses for Penix. His favorite target's been wide receiver Ty Freifogel, who has 24 grabs for 424 yards and 4 scores. Freifogel's averaging 18 yards a catch and 106 yards receiving per contest. Meanwhile, the real strength of this Hoosier ball club has been its stifling defense. They actually pitched a shutout this past week against Michigan State. Now, this Hoosier D is allowing just 10 points per contest on the road and just 127 yards passing in that same category. Defensive back Tywan Mullen has 2 interceptions from this Hoosier secondary, 21 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a couple of PBUs for the sophomore. Defensive back Jalen Williams also has a pair of interceptions from this secondary, 11 total tackles and 1 PBU for Williams. And of course, can't forget about Micah McFadden, who leads this team in tackles with 30 of them from that linebacker position. McFadden also has a pair of sacks on the year as well. This Hoosier defense held Michigan and Rutgers to just 21 points respectively in their past couple of meetings with those programs. Those were over the course of the past couple of weeks. And of course, out of the Hoosiers' last 10 games dating back to last season, Indy's also successfully covered the point spread in 80% of those contests. Now, total-wise, Indiana's most recent ball game with Michigan State fell nearly 30 points below the posted number for that ball game. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, 2 out of Ohio State's last 3 contests stayed under the line themselves. So with all that said and done, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the underdog Indiana Hoosiers plus 21 and the under 66.5 in that matchup. All right, next contest. It is going to be the Michigan State Spartans squaring off against Maryland, 12 p.m. Eastern start time. The Maryland Terrapins are minus 5.5, totals 54 and a hook. Maryland's on a 2-game winning streak, 2-0 against the number in those contests. The Terps are scoring 28 points a game on this season, and they're gaining over 420 yards offensively per game. Talia Tungavailoa has thrown for nearly 780 pass yards along with 6 touchdowns. Wideout Dante Demas also has 17 grabs for 228 and a couple of scores. And of course, can't forget about wide receiver Rakeem Jarrett, who also has a dozen catches for 213 and a couple of scores himself. Jarrett's averaging 18 yards per catch. Meanwhile, the bruising senior running back Jake Funk, he's gained 336 rushing yards in just 3 games, along with a pair of touchdowns. Jake is averaging 7.8 yards a carry, along with 112 yards per game. Now, Maryland has successfully covered the point spread in 8 out of their last 11 home games. Now, they're taking on a Michigan State team who just lost their 3rd game of the season already. That was a 24-0 shutout loss to Indiana. And Sparty's currently on a 2-game losing streak, and they failed to cover the point spread in 3 out of their last 4. Now, Michigan State is rushing for just 73 yards per contest, and they're averaging just 15 points per game. They've scored just 7 total points since... let's try that again. They scored just 7 total points since October 31st, and they've actually played 2 games since that date, by the way. Now, quarterback Rocky Lombardi has completed just 57% of his passes, and he's thrown 7 interceptions. Meanwhile, Sparty's leading rusher, Jordan Simmons, is gaining just 36 yards a game on the ground. But it's not just the offense that's been bad for Michigan State. Defensively, they're allowing 34 points a game and nearly 150 yards a game on the ground. Now, this Michigan State pass rush is averaging less than 1.3 sacks per game as well, and the Spartans have failed to cover the point spread in 10 out of their last 12 conference ball games dating back to last year. So if you're into historical trends, this game's certainly not in your favor if you're backing Michigan State. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Michigan State's last 4 ball games got over the posted number. Meanwhile, Maryland saw their 3rd contest of the season against Minnesota fly nearly 30 points above the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Maryland Terrapins minus 5.5 and the over 54 and a hook in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. It is Iowa, Penn State. And once again, that's a 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff in Happy Valley. Now, the Hawkeyes are minus 2 on the road, totals 47 and a hook. The Hawkeyes are on a 2-game winning streak, 3-0 against the spread in their last 3. They've scored 84 total points in their last 2 ball games, and they gave up just 14. Now, this Iowa offense is scoring 31 points a game this season, and they're rushing for nearly $1.85 per contest. Tyler Goodson has rushed it 63 times for 375 yards and 5 touchdowns. Goodson's averaging 6 yards per carry. Running back Mekhi Sargent has also rushed for over 200 yards himself, and he's plunged it into the end zone 4 times on the ground as well. Sargent is gaining 6.3 yards per carry. Meanwhile, this tough, hard-nosed Iowa defense is allowing only 14 points per contest, and they're also giving up just 201 yards a game through the air. Defensive back Jack Kerner has 3 interceptions from this Hawkeye secondary, 25 total tackles, and a PBU for Jack. Zach Van Valkenburg also has 3.5 sacks from the defensive line, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble recovery for Zach. Riley Moss and Barrington Wade each have a pair of interceptions for the Hawkeyes as well. Iowa has 8 total interceptions on the year, along with double-digit takeaways. The Hawkeyes have successfully covered the point spread in 7 out of their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, Penn State on the other side is coming off a 7-point loss to Nebraska in their last outing. They gave up 30 points to the Cornhuskers, who don't even pass for 200 yards a game. Now, this Penn State defense has given up 30 points or more in all 4 of their ball games this season. And for those who don't already know, Penn State's 0-4 straight up on the season, failing to cover the point spread in each and every one of those games. Now, Penn State's scoring just 22 points a game in Happy Valley this season, and they're rushing for less than 70 yards per contest at Beaver Stadium. Running back Devin Ford is averaging less than 4 yards a carry, and he's gaining just 51 yards per game. Meanwhile, the Penn State quarterbacks are completing just 54% of their passes, and they've been sacked 15 times. Not really sure if it's going to be Clifford or Levis. They've kind of been bouncing those guys back and forth, and both of those guys have looked terrible this year. I know that Levis is completing like 47% of his passes. And, speaking of terrible, this Penn State defense is allowing 37 points a game at home and 300 yards passing in that same category. The Nittany Lions have failed to cover the point spread in their last 7 straight at Beaver Stadium. And, of course, that dates back to last season. These guys can't cover the number at home. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Penn State's last 4 ball games got over the posted number. Meanwhile, Iowa's 3rd game of the season for them against Michigan State flew over the posted total for that game by double digits. So with all that in mind, give me the Iowa Hawkeyes -2 and the over 47.5 in that contest. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Wisconsin-Northwestern. And this is another kind of marquee game in the Big Ten, actually in the country. And that's going to be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start at Ryan Field. Wisconsin's -7 on the road, totals 44. The Badgers are coming off a dominant 49-point effort over Michigan. They destroyed the Wolverines by 38 points in that one. The Badgers are currently 2-0 straight up and against the spread on the season, and they racked up 94 total points in those 2 contests. Graham Mertz is completing nearly 75% of his passes through 2 ball games, 375 pass yards and 7 touchdown throws. His favorite target's been tight end Jake Ferguson, who has 11 grabs for 123 yards and 4 touchdowns. But when you play Wisconsin, you got to expect them to pound the football as well. 523 total rushing yards through 2 contests, 262 yards a game they're averaging on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, the Badgers have 3 interceptions and 4 total takeaways. Safety Eric Burrell has 7 total tackles and 2 PBUs. And of course, Leo Chenal has a sack, an interception, and 7 total tackles from that linebacker spot. Wisconsin's won 6 out of their last 7 conference ball games. And out of their last 20 road games, they've been victorious in 75% of them. So pretty good trend there for those backing Wisconsin. Now they are taking on a Northwestern team who, despite a 4-0 record, they're averaging less than 4.8 yards per play offensively. The Wildcats are also throwing for just 180 yards a game. Quarterback Peyton Ramsey hasn't even eclipsed the 725-yard mark through 4 ball games this season. He's also averaging an interception a game. The Wildcats' leading receiver is also averaging just 48 yards receiving per contest as well. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, the Wisconsin Badgers are officially 2-0 to the over thus far in the season. They also saw 7 out of their last 8 ball games get over the line as well. Give me the Wisconsin Badgers -7 in the over 44 in that matchup. And with that, we're going to dive into our next and final contest for the show. It is going to be Michigan squaring off against Rutgers. And there it is. 7:30 p.m. Eastern start time in Piscataway. The Michigan Wolverines are -11 on the road. Totals 55. This Wolverine defense is giving up 35 points a game, nearly 180 yards a game on the ground. Now, Michigan's currently on a 3-game losing streak, and they're coming fresh off a 49-11 beatdown at the hands of Wisconsin. Needless to say, the Wolverines have failed to cover the point spread in their last 3 straight, but they also gave up 87 total points in their last 2 ball games as well. The Wolverines are giving up 270 passing yards a game on the road. They are taking on a Rutgers program who successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 4 themselves. Now, the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers, they're averaging 27 points per contest, and they're holding their opponents to just 171 yards passing at home. The Scarlet Knight defense has 9 total takeaways through 4 games. Now, linebacker Olakunle Fatukasi leads the Scarlet Knight defense with 50 total tackles on the season, along with a forced fumble and a pair of fumble recoveries. Mohamed Toure also has 3 sacks from that linebacker spot himself, 2 forced fumbles, and 8 tackles for Mo. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, 3 out of Rutgers' 4 contests on the season did get over the posted total. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Michigan's last 2 straight ball games got over the line themselves. They're also 3-1 to the over for the entire season themselves. So with all that said and done, I'm going to finish off the show with another underdog. Give me the Underdog Rutgers Scarlet Knights +11, keeping this one close, and the over 55 in that game. And with that, guys, that is going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind, we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Thursday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.